So my name is Alexander Martin, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I think when creating joy and like the phrase joy, like we think of happiness and things like that, but I feel like it's something that you have to find. Like you learn what you feel comfortable with, you learn what brings you joy, and you learn how to share that experience. And so finding it is a journey of like finding yourself, finding community, learning what you value. And so you have to get out there a lot to really figure out what joy is, and also following your instinct, because sometimes there's things that intrinsically bring joy, and you know those, like you've done them since you were a kid. So like figuring out those things and like honing in to find more of it. Well, as like a visual artist, like my work, all the research that goes into my work, the things I'm making, I'm referencing stuff I've done since I was a kid. Like I've been drawing and painting since I was a kid, but like I reference like pop culture, queer history, stuff that like I didn't realize I was engaging with as a kid. It was just around me. And now looking back, I'm like, oh, that was like a whole movement. And so this constant like connecting back to my youth and realizing the implications of those things then, what they have on me now, and then making work about that, making work about my narrative or narratives of people within my community has let me really reconnect with that childhood self. And like also, I mean, with recent events like the pandemic, being home all the time, like I grew up a huge nerd. I grew up a big nerd. So like quarantining with the same group of people, playing video games, like having time to play video games, and like getting into tabletop gaming, and like reading all these like magazines and things that I used to read as a kid, but now I had the time to reinvest in that, made me realize how important that is and was to me. Well, when I was in undergrad, I originally went to study graphic design because, like, from a small town in West Virginia, I knew I wanted to do art or music, and music school was a little intense. I felt a little hoity-toity. I mean, I have lots of friends who went through with music school, but like, it's elitism and colonial mindsets run rampant. And I started getting into visual art, but I did graphic design because all I knew was like graphic design and like painting. And I was like, oh, I need a job, so I'll make work for other people. But then I had a professor in printmaking who was really, really awesome. And I sort of saw community and how like art can build community and connection, like collaboration. And I started making work without a client in mind, but making work for myself. And then like our professor encouraged us to apply for shows and exhibitions. And I learned that sharing my work, sharing these things with the public are a way to like change minds. Like I'm all about like take to the streets, be heard, be loud. But you also need to like prioritize well-being, and there's other ways to bridge gaps in unexpected ways. So like showing my work in a public forum gave me avenues to talk to people who haven't experienced my experiences. It lets me sort of relate things on a human level, not getting lost in language and academics and like queer theory and all that stuff, like, which is wonderful things. Like I had to research it for my degrees, like it's great stuff, but like it's a real lived experience. You don't have to be an academic to live an experience. And so sharing my work gave me an opportunity to sort of have these communications bridge gaps, and then that's expanded now where like I perform and I do public speaking engagements and things like that, where like those are all parts of my practice now of sharing to make connection and then giving people space to try and share as well. There's a couple people. One, Jessica, who owns Lit on Fire, which we're in right now. I've been friends with her for years now. I'm working with her, and we've weathered a lot together. And she's like really passionate about building community, building space, and utilizes her space to do so. But also like realistic and like approachable, like not getting caught up in, again, like the performative aspect of things or like the language of things, but like the real human intention and emotion. And like we can be really transparent with each other. And it's been really awesome to share that and be able to do that. An artistic inspiration is like my friend, another Jess. Jessica being, and we co-run Project 1612 with her husband, and I went to grad school with her, and so like we've seen so much growth, and she really values slow living and like taking care of her daughter and making work about like be like from home and family and loss. It makes really potent, powerful work, while living a life that supports that and like living with purpose and like making space for herself and her family and prioritizing that. And it's really wonderful to watch people, because it's very against the grain. Like, we both went through academia. We both have been professors. We both have worked in academia. Like, she was a curator at a university. And for her to prioritize her family and her work, because people think it's like one or the other. It's like, no, like as an artist, like being an artist is lifestyle. It's not just what you make, it's how you live. Seeing her live as an artist and be a caretaker and be a partner is really inspiring. And so like she's someone I look to a lot, and like someone who like anytime good or bad, like tragedy or celebration, one of the first people I call. I feel like folks listen to me now, which like as a Black trans person from a rural space, like in most spaces, especially in academia, like not taken the most seriously, like too emotional or too loud or like unprofessional or whatever, like other words we want to use to fill in like systematic racism here, like just lots of things where it's like people at first don't take me seriously, but I've had the opportunity to sort of had captive audiences, so to speak, and folks have listened now. And so I think it's giving me more opportunity to be in spaces. Like, I have an academic training. I am a professor. Like, I can speak the lingo of the ruling class. And so I've gotten opportunities to speak in those spaces, which has been wonderful. It sort of reiterates a lot of the gaps and barriers that are there where I'm like, oh God, like this is why we're like this. But also it lets me, like, I've gotten to share stories, my own stories, share stories of my community and community members in spaces where we're not often invited. And like, I hate that I have to have this sort of like pedigree to like be professional. But I've seen people's attitudes of me change. People who sort of ignored me before, now I'm like, I'm not paying attention because you know, like I have the credentials or whatever, which is dumb. But I've liked that I've been able to get into those spaces and like disrupt them a little bit, like not aggressively, but just, I mean, existing in those spaces is a disruption, but getting to have conversations like this in those spaces and trying to educate folks, being in academic spaces and like giving our community, like trying to make space for our community to get to speak at these things, try to convince folks to break down barriers has been really, really good. And I think going forward, an impact I'd like to leave is like creating more opportunity for folks to do that. Creating more, because not everybody, like you don't have to be a community leader to advocate for change. You don't have to be like, I cannot emphasize enough how much I am prioritizing like personal time and self-care and rest. I've taken a nap every day this week. And so, but I hope that I can leave an impact to give folks permission to disrupt these spaces and also prioritize themselves. And then on the other end, I hope in more academic and like quote unquote professional settings, I let folks see that the barriers they've made there, the barriers that they've had to navigate, no one else should have to. The reason they're stressed, the reason they feel like they have imposter syndrome, the reason they have all these things is because it's all built upon made up ideals. When like you can just get into a space, have a conversation and try to make things happen. And so I hope that I, especially in this community, can get folks in those spaces to like chill and embrace community and stop creating imaginary boundaries because they had to navigate them. So I originally moved here for graduate school. I had visited a small town, West Virginia, and plans of like going to New York. Did some work in like Pittsburgh and thought it'd be really cool to go to school there, but they didn't really have a university that had my program. And so I visited Chicago with a friend to help her install some work in like 2013. And I was like, the Midwest is different. Like I gone to Ohio and stuff. Like West Virginians, we go to like Kings Island or whatever it's called now in Ohio for vacation all the time, or go to Cincinnati, get some chili. But I'd never been to like the Midwest. Like there were still influences of Appalachia on that. And so I really liked the region. It was different. Being out on the road made me anxious because you could see the sky forever. And then I thought Chicago was super, super cool. Like it was like the bustliness of a city like New York, but more open. So I was like, I want to go to school out here, and looked at some universities and then got some recommendations from my professor, and Bradley made me the best offer. So I didn't even know Peoria existed. And then I came here, and like grad school, especially for your MFA, Master in Fine Arts, it's like most art professors don't have a PhD. Like the MFA is the terminal degree. So it's very research based. It's like you're in a studio making and like reading and writing, and very intense and hard, but I survived by connecting to community and like meeting folks doing things, and really fell in love with like Peoria. Like it looked really cool when I moved. I remember driving in and like seeing the skyline, and my mom was like, oh my God, you're going to live in like a big proper city, which to people here, like south of Chicago, they're like, what do you mean big city? But like, I'm from a valley in the middle of West Virginia, so like this is a big city. But the stuff happening got me like really excited, and seeing folks doing things like without permission, just making stuff happen. And when I graduated, like went back and forth, like ran into some issues with jobs, ran into like trying to figure out work, ran into systematic issues of like, again, folks not taking me seriously, inviting other folks in for positions. And so I was like, maybe I'll move somewhere else. And then I had sort of a personal, like a family incident that happened back home. I had to go back home and reconnect with family. And that sort of helped me recontextualize Peoria a little bit. And then the pandemic hit. And I had to sit and be with the people I lived with, be with my friends, and navigate that and think and heal, and really started to connect to like the things I wanted to do, the stuff I wanted to do. Like Peoria has space for that. And a lot of people want to complain, but those people aren't going to be happy anywhere. Like you move to a city like Chicago, it's amazing, but you drown in a sea of like similar voices. You move to other places and it's like everybody's just fighting for the 5 minutes. Whereas here you get both. You get, like, I'm never bored. I've never been bored in the city in my entire life. I'm always actively missing something to go to something else. But folks just doing stuff, making it happen, making space, faster pace, like lifestyle, but then also space for rest, peace. As an artist, it's affordable, and there's space to make and to collaborate. And I think Peoria is a beacon of a movement that I hope's international, of like, we had everyone moving to the cities in the mid-century, and like then we had the suburbs pop up, but now everything's getting expensive. People are moving back to mid-sized cities and revitalizing them. And Peoria is being revitalized, not just from city council or whatever event, like investors they get, like ignoring all of that. The community's reinvesting in itself, and it's a really wonderful space to be in. And that's like, I decided then there, I was like, I think I want to live here. Like, I know I'm going to be traveling for work as a performer and artist. Like, I'm going to be going all over, but I think I want to set up a home base here. And like last year I bought a house, which I never thought would be possible. And thank you. It's been a year this August, and I've lived there now. And like, I'm here. Like, I'm actually got a grant from the city to help pay for the house. So I'm definitely here because I can't, but like, I'm here and I like that. And like, I know, again, I'm going to travel for work. I'm going to like maybe even sublet in other places for if I do like residencies or things like that. But like, this is home and it feels really good. In recent history, I went to the opening of the farmers market, and like the first one of the season, and it was super crowded because like everybody's like, I can be outside. But walking through the farmers market and seeing generations of queer people, youth, like teenagers, my age, older, and much older, generations of folks within our community, visibly like queer people holding hands, intermixed with just like your average Midwesterner. I mean, some of them are average Midwesterners who happen to be queer, but like all of that just coexisting was like, I was getting emotional over my cheese pretzel. I was like, I'm not going to cry at this farmer's market, but it was just seeing it and then running into other friends and being not just visibly queer, but loud and silly and like in a public space without a second guess. No backwards glances, no stares, seeing people like inside the community and outside the community running businesses, selling their wares, selling artwork, selling produce. Like everyone was just gathering and coexisting peacefully and being people, and lots of different kinds of people. And that like was just sort of a euphoric moment of like, oh, I live here. Like it's not like a Pride Fest in Chicago, but we're interspersed in the community and connected to people in the community and are part of the community without having to be completely isolated. And it was, I don't know, like I was just like, this is wild. Like it was just a sense of like home and connection that I have not experienced before. And then like on a more, I guess that was pretty personal, but even more personal level, just like the small things I do with my friends, like being in the studio working and like my nesting partner teaching yoga to like our other queer friends, and like just little moments like that in Peoria, having the space for moments like that, like sitting on someone's porch and having a beer in the summer, like those moments of like I never thought I would get to like live a life like that while being myself. And so those moments of like normalcy and simplicity like really hit hard, and they bring me a lot of joy, and I strive to get as much of that as possible. I hope that we get more folks, like 'cause so many folks have moved here, and I hope we continue to grow our community. But I hope we keep that sort of grassroots, like we have tourism bureaus and things like that, but I know personally, like one of my friends, Angie, has got like 360 people now to move here via TikTok. Like, it doesn't get more grassroots than just getting on your phone. And so some of the most powerful things here are those grassroots movements. And we need political advocacy. We need people to run campaigns. We need people to vote. And like, please do all of that. But it's very easy to get disenfranchised and disheartened with politics because like there's systems and like eons of things to undo. And it's hard work and it's happening, but I hope that people realize the opportunities they can make for themselves and the community they can build on their own and with friends, like make things happen. Like the place right now, like lit on fire. Jessica's made so many events and things that have happened here just because she was like, that sounds like a good idea, let's do it. And like Peoria is a space for that. And so I hope that that energy continues and that we see more and more of that happening until, like, again, keep voting, hold the politicians accountable, go to city council meetings if you have the bandwidth to do it. But I hope by existing happily and loudly and making these things happen, that people in power see that. And they're like, maybe we should listen to our community more. And so I hope to see that investment in grassroots movements. Not everyone needs to be a nonprofit. Not everyone needs to have like a space to do something. Not everything needs all this paperwork and documents and to be beholden to somebody else. Like, just do stuff and make it happen and let it keep happening. I think, like, to anybody watching this, like, if you want to create space that has joy like this, create space that has community, especially folks outside the community who want to be allies. I was just in a panel discussion that talked about this. Don't get too caught up in textbook allyship. Don't get too caught up in knowing the right terms. Like, I have been misgendered by people who I love, and it was just an honest mistake. Like, I know how they see me. Sometimes people I love misgender me all the time, but it's like, I know they see me correctly, and I feel that when they interact with me and how they interact with me. So I'm not upset. It's just like a gentle correction, like, oh, I'll do better. But I've also run in circles with people who know the right language, speak the right terms, know all of the jargon and the lingo, but to them it's all like a sort of, it's very heady. It's not lived experience. It's a very mental thing. And so they think that my identity is just a mental thing. And they interact with me that way, or with members of my community. When like real allyship is like the farmer's market coexisting. And so I would just encourage folks to make space, but also just try to embody, like, you're going to mess up, that's fine. You're going to do things, but like, don't get caught up in like, you don't like, if you've read Judith Butler and like bell hooks, that doesn't make you a queer ally. Like that, like real queer people living in the streets, like the people like changing rooms in a basement at a gay bar when you're getting ready to go perform. Like we aren't down there reading bell hooks. Some of us are maybe, but not that. And so it's like, it's real lived experience. So like embody allyship through a lived experience. Like, meet folks as people, because we are people. Like, you may not understand my lived experience, but like I don't understand yours. Like no one, like unless we're not telepathic yet. So like you have to information exchange and get to know people. And so I encourage folks making space to do that and listen and make space for folks to come in and share their story, share their experience, and give them a seat at the table so that we can truly meet in equitable grounds to make change happen, to make things happen.